Welcome to the podcast for and about Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Brittany Felix, and every Monday through Friday I'll be talking about a different aspect relating to the Springs, including upcoming events, restaurant reviews, local business spotlights, media coverage about the Springs, public works projects, local activities, answering your questions about the city, and much, much more. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the updates. And also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find links to all of those social media accounts at springspodcast.com/social media. The Colorado Springs podcast is proudly sponsored by Elevation Hydration. Elevation Hydration is the only hydration therapy clinic serving Colorado Springs, and they are dedicated to helping you elevate your life. They use intravenous vitamin therapy to help athletes needing a boost of energy or help recovering after a tough competition, people experiencing cold-like symptoms or dehydration from the flu, anyone needing to recover quickly from a rough night out. I'm looking at you, college kids. And just anyone wanting a healthy alternative to preventative care. They have a wide variety of hydration packages to help address whatever your needs are. They're conveniently located inside Lush Beauty Lounge at 812 Village Center Drive, and if you mention this podcast during your visit, you'll receive $10 off any hydration package. To learn more about Elevation Hydration or to schedule an appointment, visit springspodcast.com/hydrate. Welcome to episode 12 of the Colorado Springs podcast. Today we are going to talk about marijuana laws here in the Springs, and if you are a current resident and this is one of your hobbies, you probably already know these laws, but I want to make sure that they are out there as a resource on this show for anyone who is considering moving to the Springs or who maybe has already moved here and are just kind of looking to get the facts. So one of the things that I can speak to personally is the fact that people outside of Colorado might have the wrong idea about marijuana use here in Colorado. I know that at first I thought, oh, it's legal in Colorado. You can just smoke marijuana wherever you want to in Colorado, no problem. And for anyone here in the Springs, we know that that is very obviously not the case. So just to summarize, Amendment 64 makes private use and limited possession up to 1 ounce and home growing of up to 6 plants of marijuana legal under Colorado law for adults 21 years of age and older. So that's Colorado in general, kind of the blanket, basic definition of that amendment. Now in Colorado Springs, the city council has taken advantage of the fact that jurisdictions can provide additional restrictions, and they have done so. Colorado Springs does not allow the retail sale of marijuana. They allow it to be purchased for medical uses if you have a medical card, but not retail. So now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about some general laws and restrictions that apply to Amendment 64 throughout the entire state. And then I'm going to talk more about specifically Colorado Springs and how it has handled this situation. So first off, just because it is legal to smoke recreational marijuana in this state, that does not mean it can be smoked openly and in public. So that means if you are out hiking, if you're camping, anything like that on public land or federal land or state land, anything basically that you do not own and have not been given permission to consume marijuana on, it is not allowed. You may not buy, possess, or smoke marijuana if you're under the age of 21, and it is, of course, illegal to sell or give marijuana to anyone under 21. It is also illegal to transport or possess marijuana in the Colorado Springs or Denver International airports, and it's illegal to transport it across state lines. Now, as of October 1st of 2016, the rules were changed a little bit for recreational sales, not medical sales. Those have not changed as far as the amounts that can be sold in one visit or one transaction. For retail sale, they wanted more control over essentially concentrates and edibles because obviously there's not the same amount of THC in those as there is in the actual flower. So if you are in a place that allows recreational sales, you are allowed to purchase 1 ounce of flower per transaction. That now is equal to 8 grams of concentrate and 800 milligrams of edibles. You can mix and match, but you do have to pay attention and make sure that you are within that 1 total ounce restriction. And now that is just for purchasing. That does not apply to possession. You can still legally possess up to 28 grams of THC as defined in the Colorado Constitution. And DUI laws do apply just the same way to marijuana use. The legal limit is 5 nanograms of THC per milliliter of blood. Now, it is fairly difficult for them to register this and test it out in the field, and everyone metabolizes THC at different rates. So 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood will affect people differently. So there's a very good chance that if you are over that limit, it may not be noticeable. You may be able to function perfectly fine and not have any issues. However, marijuana DUIs are still given. They are still handed out, so it is better to be safe than sorry. Now, I mentioned earlier that according to Amendment 64, you are allowed to have 6 plants. However, Colorado Springs City Council has taken that one step further, and there is now a limit of 12 plants that can be grown in any home, no matter how many residents live there. So if there are 4 adults living in a home, you can still only have 12 plants. So along the lines of other things that Colorado Springs has done to make the selling and consumption of marijuana a little bit more difficult is in May of 2016, they actually extended a moratorium on medical marijuana businesses. And that moratorium bars new medical marijuana businesses from opening in the city and forbids existing ones to expand or move. It did receive a 7-1 vote, and this was an extension on a previous moratorium where they actually promised not to issue a second one. Councilwoman Helen Collins was the only one to dissent against this moratorium, and it was specifically because she felt that it was wrong to go back on their word. And in September of 2016, 9 Colorado Springs cannabis consumption clubs received cease and desist letters from the city clerk's office. These clubs got around the law of not being able to sell recreational marijuana by essentially claiming that their patrons were trading cannabis for memberships and or signing affidavits saying the club was growing their legally allowed 6 marijuana plants for them. However, also in March of 2016, the city council passed a ban that said clubs could no longer sell, trade, give, distribute, or allow the transfer of marijuana. They did give businesses that had been open prior to September 23, 2015, 8 years to phase out their businesses, but they did require that they apply for a license. Some of the businesses did not apply, some of them got denied, 1 was approved, and as of September 2016, 2 were still under consideration at that time. The clubs that were denied or did not apply were the ones issued a cease and desist. They had to basically stop business immediately. So Colorado Springs City Council has made it very clear that they are going to be strict with regards to recreational sales and use of marijuana. So if this is something that is very important to you, if this is the reason that you are moving to Colorado, I would encourage you to maybe look at a different city. Now, if you are already here and you are just finding this out, you have made this realization after you have signed a lease with an apartment or bought a home, basically meaning it's too late for you to go to a different city, there are 2 recreational dispensaries in Manitou Springs, which is basically distance-wise the same as being here in the city, depending on what side of town you're on, so it's not that much of an inconvenience. They are Emerald Fields and Maggie's Farm. Now remember, these are of course only their Manitou Springs locations that I am talking about specifically for the purposes of this episode. I will have links to both of their websites in the show notes on my website so that you can get their hours of operations, contact information, address, all of that. And I will also have links to the resources that I used to obtain the information for this episode. The articles will be linked to in the show notes, as well as a pretty incredible site called coloradopotguide.com. Not only does it provide a lot of information on the laws, strain profiles, dispensaries, but it also will help you plan your marijuana-related travel, especially if you're coming from out of state. So it will let you know what places to stay are 420 friendly, basically, because that's another thing that you have to realize. businesses can still restrict the use of recreational marijuana as well. So this applies to hotels, Airbnbs, including employers. So that's something that you're going to find if you're moving to the Springs. A lot of employers still do not allow it and will submit you to a drug test. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind if you are going to be consuming marijuana or THC in the state of Colorado. And these are all things that you definitely need to consider if this is a reason that you are moving here. So if you want to check out the sources that I use to obtain this information, which is of course going to have quite a bit more information, especially coloradopotguide.com, links to everything will be in my show notes. You can find those at springspodcast.com/012. And of course, those are the actual numbers, 012. That is going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you back here tomorrow.